All right. The little red light tells us that we are live and on the air for the March 2017 edition of the Galaxy's Edge podcast with Nick Cole. I am Jason Onspach. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's it's the beginning of spring, so I think I'm being assaulted by all the pollen legionnaires, and it makes me feel like the Death Star that I am is compromised. But I soldier on, and I write all these books that I've obligated myself to write, which is beginning to become. It's on the verge of becoming overwhelming. Like I actually had like a moment. My wife and I were out having Indian food last night at like a little food court place, and I just kind of went out and I said, I think I've bitten off more than I can chew.
You are really busy.
Yeah,
And
and
it's not
I
just
added to it yesterday, so
what'd you do?
I got
Or can
asked.
you not say?
No, I can say I think it's cool. No one listens to this podcast. No, they did.
It's very exclusive.
Somewhere out there, someone's like, "Oh, I'm nobody." No, no. Bane, Tony Weisskopf said I could send her a pitch, so I sent her a pitch yesterday. I think my wife just had a 12-day run at the opera, and it was like 12 days solid of going to Los Angeles, coming home at midnight, getting up in the morning, and going back again, and blah blah blah. And I think when I wrote that pitch yesterday, I just kind of started to like go offline for a second. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when Obi-Wan deactivates. Does he deactivate the track? Yeah, he deactivates the tractor beam,
Yeah, he does.
which was a big thing. You know what I mean? Tractor beams. But like they really never kind of came up in the rest of the series.
Yeah, they were really important
Right.
in
But it was really important in Star Trek. Star Trek had tractor beams.
yeah, right.
So you
Yeah, no,
can
it
really
was a big
tell
deal in episode 4, and then
right.
it kind of went away.
Yeah, and like that was the big moment. We got it, but it really should have been like later in 6 it was the shield generator. There were
Right.
I think in 1 there was a shield thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously in Rogue One there was a shield thing going on, but the tractor beam kind of like they're like, well, what does it do? Well, it just sucks people in and you can't let them go. And they're like, well, that's not that's not cool.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's not cool. I remember a few of the expanded universe books had
Yeah.
some creative use of the tractor beams and
Right.
trying to escape it and things like
Well,
that.
smart people like writers like
Mm-hmm.
us and the people that listen to this podcast, um, we realize that, I mean, the force for me, the only force powers that I really care about is a tractor beam. As much as
Right.
I would like to like is force pull if you played
Mm-hmm.
Knights of the Old Republic, but
Sure.
as much as I would like force wave and force choke,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way you're, like as a lawful good human being, you're not going to use force wave. There's never really going to be ever an opportunity where you need to use force wave.
Probably not.
And definitely not force choke, though I probably would have used it a lot over the last 8 years.
Especially if you could use it over Twitter.
Yeah, if I could use it over Twitter, I'd have force choked a lot of people. But I would remember in Knights of the Old Republic, the more you did evil, your character got all like Anakin and heaving and red and blah blah blah. So,
Yes.
But I can never really play evil characters. I always have to play like good characters. So
Like you do the evil with a conscience.
well, I think I'm really doing good with Jack Random, but there was a moment in the campaign where you asked me what my alignment was, and I think I had written down chaotic neutral, but I think I was playing him as chaotic evil.
Uh-huh.
And I was doing pretty good at it. Like, and the weird thing is like the amount of times that the party would just go along with whatever I did. Like they would, like when I knifed that guy in a bar, they would just be like, "All right." But if Forbes tried it, and I think Forbes was chaotic evil, like
Mm-hmm.
they immediately like, no, so it's kind of funny. But anyways, going back, I think this started with how are you feeling? I moved from pollen to tractor beams to force choke to chaotic evil to Forbes West. How's that?
That's pretty good span. I think there's Indian food tied in there also.
Yeah, it was good. Usually we get the chicken tikka masala, but they had a different dish last night that was a little spicy. And that was fun too. So yeah, so I was just sitting there and I was kind of having this like, oh my gosh, I may have like I owe a novel to Kat Rocha and her publishing house, I owe a
Right.
novel
Zero
to
One Publishing.
I owe a novel to Castelia House. I need to write 8 more weird books.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do this. I have about 3 anthologies that I'm in. And then like I wrote in a secret group you're part of. I shared the pitch, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge Conan fan. I know you are too.
Right. I play a
So
barbarian.
yeah, exactly. So I'm super gay to write that story, and I just put it up on Facebook or something like that. I just said, "Oh, I wrote a barbarian story this weekend," and it's supposed to go to Jason Rennie, who does an anthology, who's starting a new pulp magazine.
Mm-hmm.
But like I had this like moment where I was like, I really want to be with Bane. I'm just gonna like literally do the thing everybody tells you not to do on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
which is like tag a publisher and ask them to buy what you just wrote. And
Mm-hmm.
like, but I'm getting to that infamous level in my career where like I do have good reviews. People know a lot about me,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm kind of infamous in certain ways. I'm that guy who's done all those crazy things and, bucked the trends. And, I'm making myself sound worse. It's like more like he's that asshole guy. So, and I'm sorry, I swore on a podcast. So I tagged her and I said, "Hey, I'm really like," and a lot of people weighed in. They're like, "Oh, that sounds awesome." And I was like, yeah, it should be up soon unless Tony Weisskopf at Baen wants to buy it. And then she chimed in and she said, "I'd like to read it." So I was like, woohoo. But but then it was that moment where I'm like, I have a lot of projects to write.
Right. Yeah. What
And
are
that,
they?
and being Baen, that would immediately go to the top of the pile, which is
Right.
kind of cool because I really like to write whatever I'm vibed out on.
Mm-hmm.
Like this. I really like to write this because my mind is there. I really want to write this Conan thing because suddenly I'm in this universe.
Right.
And and sometimes when you have other projects, you're like, "Oh, I remember when I was really excited about this project and then I made the deal and now I'm struggling to remember what was exciting about it." Not that I really have that, but like it just takes a moment. It's not struggling to be excited. It's more struggling to like reorientate your mind,
Mm-hmm.
to like, oh, now I'm moving from post-apocalyptic thing to zombie thing. Now I'm moving to fantasy thing, or I kind of feel like now people want more Dr. Midnight stories because I released a secret novella to my email list and everybody's like, "This is awesome," and like
Right.
now they're all like, and literally like I had a psychotherapist who is a reader of mine read it and diagnose the character.
Really.
And yeah, and people really like it and they want more of it, but it's just super gonzo stream of consciousness. It's kind of a rabid character to get in your hard drive.
That's interesting. What did he tell you, Dr. Midnight's Problemist?
He said that he was having an episodal break. He wrote down a bunch of stuff. He said he was having an episodal break that was brought on by the drugs, but was probably already there due to PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he's basically a massive narcissist.
Yeah.
So it's I think, and that's always the problem when people read anything that you write. They're like, "Well, is this you?" And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, no, it's not me." But there was a period in my life when I got out of the army and I was kind of going to film school, not really.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just, while everybody who was my friend who was actually going to film school, I'd work on their films,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of that whole thing. And then while they were actually at film school, I would go to this bar called Murphy's and I would get a $5.25 pitcher of Red Dog. It
Mm-hmm.
was called Red Dog. It was pretty sharp, bitter beer. It was not very good. Hence the $5.25 price for a whole pitcher of beer. And I don't even drink anymore.
Right.
So I'm
But
not glorifying drinking, but it was this beautiful bar that it looked over Long Beach, which is one of the older cities in Los Angeles. And I would sit there with my Hunter S. Thompson paperbacks and just, spend the afternoon killing the pitcher and reading. And so I really got into that headspace of what it's like to be a complete lunatic. And that's most people don't understand what gonzo journalism is or gonzo writing,
mm-hmm.
but it's taking the story and bending it around the reporter. That's what Hunter S. Thompson did. He took everything and made it about him.
Right.
So, once you kind of understand that and those tricks, that anything that happens to the character, even if it's seemingly random or has nothing to do with them, their crazy architecture then makes it about them.
That's interesting. If the psychologist is right, then theoretically the entire story of Weird, right? The entire story of Weird could just be existing in Dr. Midnight's mind.
Very much so. That could
Right.
that it's I mean I know that it's not. I won't cheat people that way. I know exactly what it is. But if Dr. Midnight, which he is a part of that universe, if once he would make that, like, maybe I'm the center, that would be his go-to. Maybe I'm the center of the universe.
Right.
So, and I could, like, as we develop Star Wars, not Star Wars, which is what this podcast is all about, not the problems of Nick Cole's career. But and I know you wanted to too. I wanted to make a living, breathing galaxy where you could have like a Dr. Midnight character doing Dr. Midnight things, but in cantinas and bars with freighters, and kind of, there could be crazy conspiracies. And that part that you kind of developed about the backstory of the universe and the Savage Wars, that perfectly plays into sort of the kind of guy he would be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I don't know if you remember, I wrote Dr. Midnight once upon a time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Everybody kind of jumped in and because we want, like, that character, what he was is he was the mascot of Apocalypse Weird, and we tried to have him riff on everybody's books.
Right. Yeah. So I think we were like under the gun. We were doing it was like a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter,
right,
special edition hardcover of the Red King.
Oh yeah.
This is really rare. If anyone has it, that's the Nick Cole collector's item out there, I think. Because I don't know how many were made, but there wasn't that many.
No, it wasn't. I can actually look it up. I think there were like 20.
Yeah, right. I've got one. Yeah, I know, right? So yeah, we were down to the deadline. It was crazy. Everything was just, sky was falling, right? Yeah. And our editor, Ellen Campbell, is like, well, we need something on the back blurb. We need some Dr. Midnight.
Oh, did you write the back?
Yeah, so that little back section where he just talks about what's going on, that special Dr. Midnight endorsement, that's me.
That's weird. I thought I wrote that.
It's so good. It's so good that a lot of people said that.
I'm saying that to mess with one person.
Who also isn't listening to the podcast.
Is he?
No.
No, he doesn't listen.
He's not a subscriber.
He's angry right now. But the way that we can bend this conversation about Star Wars, not Star Wars, into that failed venture of Apocalypse Weird is to talk about why I think we're doing this project. And we had a meeting via Facebook earlier today, talking about, like, so the people that are listening to this project, I would say to you, like, we're not just Nick and Jason sitting down and saying, like, hey, let's both write some junk and then fleece people.
Right.
And what I get in the Weird series is I'll get these people who write me and they're like, I really love this series. Please do not leave me hanging. And I'm not saying like, because I'm all great, but the criticism is I've been juked by other authors before, that people have written, 3 or 4 books into a series and then just dropped it, either because they quit or because, maybe they got a contract or whatever. So I know Jason and I, both because of our cultural outlook, are people who say they're going to do what they're going to do. Right. But we were part of a different venture that we was basically the training ground to learn everything that you should not do. And it was, and it was a bunch of other people. So it was all their fault. But no, it was this in its innocence and earnestness, and then it was every possible mistake that you could make. Right. So the way that Jason and I are approaching this now is not doing any of those things. And I think anytime we challenge each other on anything, we always say, we don't want to do Apocalypse Weird. And I think that was actually used today. Yeah. Because we had some writers who now want to come in and write on this. And what we don't want to do is do wrong by them, and we also don't want to do wrong by us. And there were things that were done, like, honestly, I know some of the writers hate my guts over at Apocalypse Weird because I was the figurehead. They should really hate Hugh Howey. That would be my opinion. Um, and but they're actually right about a few things. Like I'll get, like they there were people that didn't treat them fairly because they just I did my best, you did your best, Rob McClellan did their best, but there
Right.
were other people that just dropped the ball on these people and they're angry, and
Hmm.
now they think I'm Hitler, and that's okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hitler ain't what it used to be.
No, no, there's a lot of Hitlers now.
Yeah, everybody
He might
says
be
that.
upset about that.
I actually said that to a guy who is one of my readers, and he melted down on me over politics, and we got in this big back and forth. And he finally accused me of something. I said, I know I'm Hitler, but isn't everybody you disagree with these days? And then he just immediately freaked out and blocked me. And I'm like, see? So I'm cool with that. But
Yeah,
anyways,
you
I say
take away
that
the Hitler card.
yeah, I say that to say that what we're doing, and that I tell everybody in this project, is we're doing everything absolutely correct to continue to service what we're doing so that it's totally pro and everybody gets the best end user experience. And part of that is us being able to do that, meaning we charge some money,
Hmm.
us being fair with the authors, meaning we get to make money off them. See, that was a weird thing Apocalypse Weird did. And here, all you authors who hate my guts, Apocalypse Weird, you made more money than Apocalypse Weird. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, so we couldn't do that this time. We had to say, like, well, if we're going to allow people in, we have to make money off of them. As in,
Right.
if we're going to take, and you had all the right ideas about how to be fair to them and fair to us. And it's, my dad always used to have this phrase. He would say that a good deal is where everybody wins. I have a tendency to let everybody win and I lose. But then the stupid thing about that is you can't keep doing that. And that was kind of Apocalypse Weird. Everybody can't win and have Apocalypse Weird lose. Like we croaked the host organism on that one.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. By the time I came on behind the
Yeah,
scenes, yeah,
yeah, it was dead.
there
I mean,
was
it was
maybe a little bit
trying.
of
Like
breath.
I was trying my butt off until one day I
Oh yeah.
realized, like, of the original people, I was the
Hmm.
only one trying my butt off. I was like, screw this, I can write. So I say all that
Right.
to say that, like, we're doing it right now, and we're looking at expanding it, because the the masses cry for it. No, like it's really starting to turn into something. We've got something that's coming along that we're about to do with marketing
Hmm.
that's going to bump this up, with what we think is probably a pretty big influx of subscribers.
Yeah. Right.
Not that we already don't have a bunch already, but we want to keep providing value. So part of that is bringing in some writers who are really excited to tell interesting stories within this universe so that you get a constant stream of cool content,
Hmm.
but then at the same time grading that to make sure that it's quality,
Yeah.
and that we're making money off of it, so it's worth it.
Yeah, that's really the business model there. I mean, there's always going to be the main story arc, which is what our subscribers are getting now, where it's you and I writing those main books. But ideally, our goal is once we launch with Legionnaire and Galactic Outlaws,
Yeah.
that basically subscribers are just getting constant content to the point where for their subscription fee, it's a second Kindle Unlimited, right? There's just so much to
Yeah.
read.
Yeah.
But then also,
That would be
oh, good. Yeah.
no,
And
that
then
would be
for
the goal.
everybody else, yeah, I mean, I think we want every 90 days there to be a new story, a new book, or a new short story that
Yeah.
expands this universe, because it is such a big universe, and Galactic Outlaws is the heart and soul of it. But like you said, it's so big that there is freedom. We had a really good, interesting pitch from someone that was like, I just kind of want to see if I can make Firefly fit into this, and they put an
cool.
idea out there. But
Yeah.
that's totally it.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this corner of the galaxy, absolutely. Why not?
Well, because we're surfing so close to the line, I
Mhm.
totally encourage, if people want to use any science fiction, from Aliens to
Mhm.
Firefly to whatever, like, I would love to see that bent into the rules of this universe,
Right.
and then played with, because that's what we're doing already. My story arc, the only one that I'm really interested in writing, is the story of Prisma Maydoun, the
Mhm.
person that murdered her family, and sort of what happens to the galaxy because of that.
Yep.
And that's my only story, is everything that concerns everybody. But it's not really. It's actually a fairly minor tale. Yeah, it'll change the nature of the Republic, but there's still so many other things going on. And so, yeah, you can have a strong female lead who's a Firefly captain, and you could have a Dr. Midnight character running around. I think you're kind of going to do Legionnaires, and that's going to be the way to, and Legionnaires, like, as you know, as important as they are in the galactic scheme of things, they're not policy people. They're not big game people. They're like, basically the life of a Legionnaire is go here, kill that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, and that's the interesting thing about, for our subscribers that have been reading up on Legionnaire, it's life and death, and it's gripping. And all my beta readers are either Marines or U.S. Army Rangers. Like every single one. I've got like this the spec ops of beta readers.
Yeah.
Because I think when we talked about what we want to do with Legionnaires, the big thing was these guys can't just be stormtroopers. They can't just be dudes in armors that miss everything. These guys are, at the very minimum, they're Rangers leading the way. And in reality, they're probably a mix of Rangers, Recon Marines, Navy SEALs, and a few other things. Like, these guys are something else. So we wanted to capture that sense and not have them bumbling around like stormtroopers, just, you know, redshirting it everywhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we set that tone from the very beginning, pointing out that Legionnaires were expert shots. They you know, they pretty much go around, you know, murdering everybody, as in they're the superior force on the battlefield.
Right.
One, in the first novel that I'll write, that will write after Legionnaires, which picks up after this book ends, we'll meet a new type of soldier that I think will be a pretty good match for the Legionnaires. But they might be more actually like stormtroopers as opposed to the Legionnaires.
Sure.
So that'll be an interesting riff.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of reversing it to an extent. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Right. Yeah. And to the point I was also bringing up with them, while we've got a self-contained story and there's life and death situations, at the same time, this is one company of Legionnaires on one backwater planet in Galaxy's Edge fighting to survive. And they can be victorious or they can die, and the rest of the galaxy probably isn't going to notice that much.
Yeah, they won't care. I think, I feel like you're probably shaping it up to be sort of go tell the Spartans kind of moment.
How can you not, right? But
yeah,
no spoilers.
Yeah, I like to ruin all my novels badly. Like it's weird. Readers are so desperate for, and I am too. I mean, when you watch Star Wars, and it's the end, and everybody gets an award but Chewbacca, you really get the feeling like, if you don't know anything else, that Luke and Han are going to be buddies, and they're going to fly around having adventures. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's that reader thing of you really want everything to be okay. You dig this and you kind of want it to stick, but writers inherently, I mean, I think and I was thinking about the other day, the real takeaway from The Force Awakens is that everything was not happily ever after. That everything you were left with in 6 is just a big pile of crap.
Right.
Han and Leia didn't work out. They even managed to work a kid who's a total psycho into that. Luke is nuts. C-3PO has had his arm ripped off. You're probably wondering why I have a red arm. No one is. And it's just, and the Millennium Falcon is a piece. All the things that you thought, if you it was 1977 and you just walked out of Star Wars and they said, what do you think happens from here? In 40 years, is it 40 years? How long has it been? Is it 40 years?
It's going to be 77 to 2017. That's 40 years.
Gosh, I'm so old. If in 40 years, where do you think this story's at? No one could have predicted that.
Well, right, because as you remember, when it was over, it was, so the predictions were, is there any Empire left, or is it going to be Darth Vader hunting after Han and Luke and Leia, kind of on a one-man vendetta?
Yeah.
And then the other question was, is Leia going to end up with Luke, or is she going to end up with Han?
Yeah, and to Lucas's credit, he messed with everything. But like the interesting thing is the Star Wars Christmas special
Right.
really precedes everything. And that was probably Lucas like on cocaine, fumbling his way through like, I need to come up with an idea of what the galaxy looks like. And because like that was a one-off movie, but then suddenly like it was so they're I gotta have more. And then suddenly he invented this myth that he had everything planned out, which I think is just total pucky. And but the inkling and why, like, if you ever read the people, did you ever see the documentary, The People versus George Lucas?
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
they make the case that the Star Wars Christmas special is Lucas's #1 goal to erase,
Mhm.
like all evidence of it, because it really paints a very different, very groovy universe that was really going to be very much more sitcom-y
Yeah,
and
right.
episodic and that kind of stuff. Like not
Mhm.
necessarily, it was going to be more like Mannix in space. And
Right.
but thanks to the internet, it cannot. The Star Wars Christmas special will live on.
Yeah, I think everyone that wants to see it has seen it now.
Yeah, exactly.
They might regret it, but they've seen it.
Yeah, it is pretty bad. But
Mhm.
so I just say all that to say, the takeaway from The Force Awakens is that it's not happily ever after. And so I think we as writers want to ruin everybody, because that's where the drama is and all that kind of stuff. So like in books that I've written, like the Wasteland Saga, I ruin everybody. The End of the World as We Knew It, I ruined everybody.
Mhm.
Control Alt Revolt, I pretty much ruined everybody. The Weird series, I know I'm going to ruin everybody.
Mhm.
Pop Soldier is the only one where I've never, like, he just goes on to the next thing.
Right. You know, it's funny. I told my wife how my ultimate plan was to ruin the Sam Rockwell universe.
Yeah.
Because it all has to end, and I think most writers, they know, they start to think how it's going to end, right? Like it's not going to live forever. So I told her my plan, and I think it's a really beautiful ending to the story, and she did too, because she had tears in her eyes. But she forbade me from ever writing it. She was like, no, they just have to keep on. Yeah, everything just has to keep on going on with new cases and happily ever after.
Yeah, and that's like, if I think, as much as we, and I think the literary elitist leftist types, the smart people, they would always tell you, well, that's where the story is and all this kind of stuff. But actually, if you look generally, I think like at the biggest selling genre, it's kind of the detective mystery sort of crowd, and
Right.
generally those characters kind of just do that. They just kind of continue to go on, and that's what I was going to do with Perfect Question. I'm just going to have him continue to kind of go on and develop and see where that goes. But generally, no, I'm like you. I want to ruin everything, and your wife is very smart to want to. I think you probably should end it on a happy note.
Yeah, I will. I might try that one last cash out at the end of my life to say, well, if you, or maybe my kids can publish the Lost, this is how the story really ends.
Hemingway's secret gay novel.
Right.
No, there is, supposedly.
I've heard that. I've heard about that too.
It's it's such a mess.
Right.
So, and I know one of the first publishers that ever tried to buy The Old Man in the Wasteland, because he was a Hemingway fan, he was at St. Martin's, and he's like, I've read the book. You have to go into a special room at a special university, and you can read it. And I was like, oh, what's it all about? And he was like, oh, it was just great. It's brilliant. I'm like, yeah, it's probably a piece of poo. So, so there are those things to consider. But the great thing about Galaxy's Edge is we can ruin these characters, which I have every intention of ruining too, clearly, that I know of that I want to do. One character survived that was interesting in the last part that was kind of funny, because I thought he was dead, and then he came back at the end, and I was like, aha! So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. When that character showed up, I was thinking the same thing. I was like,
That's like,
oh,
hey, he's dead. No,
no way.
he's back. Because cats have 9 lives.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it would be incongruent for me to kill the Wobonki, which is a cat people. So it's basically the cat version of a Wookiee that was, again,
Hmm.
surfing close to the line. And
Right.
and then I thought, well, that's, like, I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, hey, it makes sense that he would survive because cats always survive.
Hmm.
So
Right. Yeah. They've got 9 lives,
supposedly
so that makes
that's
total sense.
science.
But see, one thing about that, and maybe we should mark that spoiler alert, is
Spoiler.
we should get back into, because right now, what we call part 1, which ends with that big long chapter 9,
Right.
is still sitting with David Gatewood, and so we haven't sent the
Oh.
non-edited version to our subscribers yet, though we can.
Oh, okay.
We can certainly do that.
Now after the Gatewood edits, I'm like, geez, can we even write?
Well, that's how it is with every time he does something, I understand.
Gatewood makes you feel especially stupid. And then he makes fun of you.
He did point out that we misspelled
Your
one of our names.
Your name.
It was my name. Yeah.
That you misspelled your name.
I misspelled my own name. Yeah.
I put facepalm on that. Are you enjoying his edits?
I think he is a fantastic editor. It's the first time I've worked with him.
Yeah, he's the best.
He's very, very good. And so I think that our plan is to have him be the editor of the entire series, of the whole shebang.
And you said he agreed to it.
Well, he agreed to edit Legionnaire.
Oh, okay.
But he hasn't agreed to do everything yet. I think he will. I think he will.
He will. We'll do it.
Yeah, I think he will. It's just a matter of, we've got to be on the ball enough to say, here's the window, and give him the stuff in time to get it back.
I'm just joking. David Gatewood isn't a whore.
But yeah, David Gatewood's going to be our editor.
Yes. And if you've never lived until you've read a David Gatewood edited manuscript, and his, I mean, like, he's actually toned down in this manuscript, but in my other manuscripts, he will just light me up. He'll just make fun of me. And it's really enjoyable. Like, it really makes you, I don't know why, maybe I crave the abuse. But
well, you know what I think we should do? Maybe we should give our partner subscribers the option of whether they want a signed copy of the book.
Yes.
Or if they would like to have a special manuscript edition where we just basically print out the manuscript with the comments and just print out the whole thing. Say, okay, here's the behind the scenes, super exclusive look at what this was and what it became with our commentary and margins.
It would be like 1976 being a script boy at Paramount or 20th Century Fox, and this hairy young Portuguese kid leaves a manuscript on the desk, and you come from the future and you realize it's Star Wars.
Right.
That's what it would be like.
It would totally be like that. And so I think that's a good idea. I think we can make the option. It would probably cost us the same to print both.
Totally.
Right.
No, we could just format it like an ebook, or no, we could format it like for CreateSpace and just have it printed in CreateSpace with all the corrections.
Yeah, and I think CreateSpace or Lulu, one of those two, they do have like a special spiral version that they'll publish.
Oh, okay.
So you could even have it look like a kind of a bit of a movie script if you want to.
CreateSpace or Lulu, which one's better? I've been using CreateSpace.
I use CreateSpace too because it's so seamless.
Right.
But I have people that have done more, I don't want to say vanity projects, but projects where the goal isn't mass distribution and consumerism, and they have enjoyed Lulu. So for example, like at our church, it has an annual synod meeting where all the churches send pastors and elders, and they kind of decide how they're going to kind of put forward the kingdom in the next year and what they want to work together for and what they want to pray for. And so since that's a formal meeting under Robert's rules, you have minutes. And when you have that much business going on and that many reports, the minutes book ends up being something you could publish, and people actually do want copies for reference. So they use Lulu for that. And they print out
I was
these
thinking of doing a special project on on the Dr. Midnight thing. And I was thinking I should make like a really cool book and just sell it through my website. You know what I mean? Rather than, so maybe I could use Lulu.
Well, and that's actually, when it comes to distribution, something we've talked about. Our plan right now is the only people that are going to get sign copies of Galaxy's Edge is if they're partner subscribers, or if they have a copy of the book and they bring it to us, then we'll sign it. You know,
I won't.
if Nick won't, he'll have Nicole sign it,
Yeah.
but their names are so similar.
Yes.
If you squint,
yeah,
it's the same thing.
right. And honestly, you want Nicole's signature. You don't want mine.
It's prettier.
I have like 45 different signatures.
Depending on how fast you are and how many times you've done it that day.
Well, I go through this moment every time I sign something. I forget what my signature is, and it's like a weird OCD. OCDC. Is that a band?
It's
OCD,
close. Parody band.
OCD thing, and it never fails. Every time I go, I suddenly I forget how to use a pen. I have never made my signature before, and one time I was at Comic-Con and I had to sign probably 200 books, and all 200 times I had it. And I was there with this editor, David Palmerico, and he was like, when you do the big signings, the editor stands right next to you and they fold out the book and they slide it in front of you and you sign it and hand it to the person. You try to do chit chat and engage. At least I do, because I'm not like a jerk, I'm not like, how are you enjoying Comic-Con? Oh, did you see that thing? And the editor's kind of glaring at you to move on. But it never failed. All 200 times I would look at this and go like, how do I make my signature?
You need a stamp.
I just need to not be me. Sometimes I have to just there's this, as I get older, I'm starting to have this moment where I'm like, maybe you don't have to be you all the time. Maybe you can just take a break. And I've started to do that. When I read out loud, because I was an actor for so long, I feel this need to have the best posture and speak out loud and do all those things. I'm like, maybe you don't have to do that. Maybe you could just actually breathe and enjoy yourself.
Right. Right. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm learning as I get older.
It's good. That's a good policy. So at any rate, maybe we want to sell the paperback copies of the Galaxy's Edge books on the website only.
Yeah. I mean,
and say, forget you, Amazon.
The argument really is this. I've never had meaningful paperback sales on Amazon. They're nice, but I just don't think that Amazon. I think where Amazon's wheelhouse is for us indie authors is ebooks. I know that there are a lot of paperback readers. It's just sometimes it's hard to crack that. I think you should have them on there and have them for sale. But if you have a core of people that are really interested in, and you're going to get sales from that. What I'm trying to say is you're never going to, the only reason that you sell on Amazon is you're trying to move the needle to get to the top lists in the number 1 spot, in the top 20, in the top 100, those kind of things. Well, you're never going to do that in paperback as an indie. So if you have X amount of people who are on your email list, or you have a dedicated reader base that really would like to have a print copy, then the kind of no-brainer thing is do the print copy through CreateSpace and buy a bunch of copies yourself. Don't put it up on Amazon for the first month, and sell out those copies and keep all the profit.
Yeah, sure. Right. Because that's where that's going to be who's interested. So sure.
Yeah. And you can even make it cheaper than Amazon would make it, but probably not really. I mean, again, no, you're not going to, that's the weird thing. Even if you're selling the book yourself, you're not going to beat Amazon.
Right. Well, Amazon doesn't allow itself to be beaten.
Right. Well, by the time you pay for shipping, and by the time, okay, so I sell on my website, I sell signed books for $20 plus shipping.
Right.
Because I have to buy it from Amazon, it has to come to me, I have to sign it. Obviously, we've talked about that whole thing. Then I have to go up to the post and ship, and I have to pay for postage. And generally, someone from Europe, Canada, or Alaska blows out the whole curve. And and then lately, I've had 2 books that I really did something nice for someone in one book, and then another book, and both of those packages have gone missing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and one was to Europe, and it was $37.50 in shipping, or $37.50 was the total for this guy to get this book. That he was like, he was saying your book, The Wasteland Saga, in Europe is $50.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, it's $7 here. Why don't I just buy it for you and ship it to you? And he's like, will you sign it? I'm like, yeah. So by the time I got it to him, it was like $37.50, and then it disappeared.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm not Amazon. I'm not gonna
Just write it off. Yeah.
no, it hurts.
Right. No, that does hurt. Right.
That came right
Well,
out of my manicure money.
you know what happened is the person in Europe like did an inspection. And we're like, this is a $50 book, and they just
I
took
know.
it.
I think he's a cop. That was my only thing. Like, I think he's a Bobby, and so I trust him. But there
Right.
was a part
Well,
of
not him. He didn't steal it.
yeah.
The person at the post office stole it instead of
Probably.
delivering it.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, yeah, you put on their $50 book and they just yoink.
Mhm.
Because the English read, like, whereas here they might not steal books. But having said that, like, Portland is the worst. And this one
Mhm.
guy, I sent him a book, and then I sent him a very special edition of one of my books.
Mhm.
And he even offered to pay me $200 for that special edition. But
Mhm.
I was so flattered. I said, since you dig it that much, no, I'm not going to gouge you for $200.
Right.
So I just gave it to him, and it went
Mhm.
missing. He's
Right.
like, oh, that happens all the time in Portland. People just
Mhm.
steal your packages. And I'm like, yeah, I wish you'd have told me that before.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, it happens up here too, and I'll tell you an interesting story. Someone stole. I don't. At first, when I was first sending off signed books, I would just put it in my mailbox outside of the house, and the post office would pick it up, mailman would pick it up, and he knew, and we'd talk. But so one time, someone came to my door and knocked on the door and handed me an open package and was like, "Oh, this came to my house. Sorry." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool." And then they left. I had never seen them in the neighborhood before. So I open it up, and it's the book I had just mailed, like with my signature and like the note, and it was to someone that had written something, so I wrote something really nice back. And I was like, that person stole that book out of my mailbox and then had remorse. They had like thieves remorse and brought it back to me.
That's good. I like that.
Yep. So.
But then they used it. Did you suspect the neighbor?
No, because it wasn't a neighbor. It was someone I'd never seen in the neighborhood that said that they lived in my neighborhood.
Oh, so that was the
and
thief.
had it misdelivered by the postal carrier. But I just put it out today. And so, yeah, it was the thief. Because, see, a lot of people don't know their neighbors. We walk in our neighborhood because we have a border collie, so we have to walk her all the time. And my family likes to go walk. So we walk through our neighborhood at least twice a day. And we know everybody in our neighborhood.
Right.
So when someone comes up and is like, I'm in your neighborhood, it's like, well, where? Because I know what the people in my neighborhood look like.
Yeah. I have high-powered binoculars set up at every window of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what all my neighbors look like, and a lot more I shouldn't know.
You know what's funny? My son, he's 12 and he's into bird watching. And he'll stand outside looking at trees, looking at birds and trees with binoculars. But it looks like he's just staring at people's windows from the front yard. We had to talk to him about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm convinced all my neighbors are serial killers. So
probably true.
Yeah.
But as long as you survive.
I live in LA. Orange County in LA. What do you? Mm-hmm. This is where, haven't you watched Bosch? All the TV shows, it's always some LA serial killer. So Hollywood wouldn't lie to you.
No, I mean, they never have yet.
Yeah. It was interesting though. One time when I was in the Army at Fort Lewis, which is right by you, Joint Base McChord, now it's called. My car broke down. At Puyallup, not Puyallup, the Nisqually Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where that's at?
Yep, I know where it is.
And it's kind of like, that used to be rural. I don't know what it is now. It was pretty rural.
Not as rural.
Yeah, and so I had to walk up the freeway to my exit, which was like exit 23 or something like that. Mm-hmm. No, it was more than that, but it was like at the north end of Olympia. And this couple picked me up in a van, and it was like late at night. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and the first thing out, and I'm a young soldier. I'm like 20 years old, and the first thing out of their mouths is, they say that at any given time, there are 5 serial killers on the I-5 corridor.
Like, first off, who says that?
I literally almost combat rolled out of the door. Just like whatever. I'll take my chances.
Right.
But like literally, I just had him like, oh, okay, just pull off here. Yeah, this is my house right here, and there's no house here. I'm like, oh, it's back in the woods, and I just bolted. I just
Right.
ran for another couple of miles,
I don't blame you.
and I'm probably alive because of that.
Yeah, that's like a weird, like the
It was
statisticals.
a really weird opening conversation.
Yeah, right.
Started.
Now, see, I've given people rides before, like that are stranded or lost and stuff like that, and sort of like, well, I hope this person doesn't kill me, but you know,
You're both thinking serial killer. So the
right, yeah,
last thing that you're going to say is serial killer. But
right.
these morons decided to open with serial killer, and I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, well, there was like this rough-looking guy. I came home one night, and it was dark. There was like a rough-looking guy, and I said hi, and he says, "Hey," and I could tell he was confused, and so I said, "Hey, you know, you need some help?" And he's like, I'm not sure where I am, which way I'm going." Going in the totally wrong direction, you know, just lost. So I offered to give him a ride, and but I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, so yeah, if I don't come back, you probably want to call the police. So we're driving, and you know, he's talking and stuff, and all of a sudden he's like, you're not gonna kill me, are you? And I just started laughing. I was like, I was worrying the same thing about you. So no, I'm not. Let's agree not to kill each other.
Now I'm not.
Now that you spoil it.
Yeah, I like it when they're surprised. I'm like, oh my gosh.
All right, we should drop things off here, wind down with whatever extra Galaxy's Edge info we want to have out there.
Well, as soon as we finish these edits, which was exactly what I was working on when you wanted to do this podcast, so thanks. I'll probably have these finished today because I have got to get to work on Soda Pop Soldier 2. I got to.
Yep, good deal.
Otherwise, people are going to kill me. So I'll have these to you today. Then they go to David Gatewood. Then we have to pay him. How much do we have to pay him?
I do know. I don't know if he wants us to give away his rates though.
No one's listening.
Oh yeah. Well, he says it's 2.9 cents a word, but I wonder if that's edited words.
Oh. Well, how much do we owe?
Well, he subtracted a few words in his edits, so it depends on how hard-nosed we want to be, right?
Well, I just want to know how much we owe him. There's nothing wrong with saying the number.
I'm looking.
It's just a podcast no one's listening to.
30,000 times 0.029.
Please say it's $10.
It's more than $10, but it's divisible by 10.
Oh, okay.
It's $870.
Damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. See how much this costs people?
It ain't cheap. And then we still haven't gotten the bill from the cover artist yet.
Yeah, that's at $345 right now, and he wants to go through it again.
Nope. Good enough.
Oh, you didn't get that email?
No, I did get the second email where he said he wants to give it another pass. That's the one where he showed us the maybe let's put that one in the group because we've shown it to partner subscribers. We'll put it in the group after the show. But that's the one where it had Rex with that big old blade over his shoulder, kind of pointing his. Yeah, that one, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm all for him going through it again. He actually, when he said in that email, he just said like, "Oh, I got to go work on another pitch," which I'm part of. I just saw the artwork he did for that pitch today for this whole new crazy video game. We just pitched to a new company.
Okay.
And I was like, this guy's awesome.
Oh yeah, he's good.
He's really good. So I'm happy. But yeah, that cover rate right now is at $345, and it's probably halfway done.
Yeah. So, well, this is the flagship. This is the one that gets the extra special attention.
Yeah.
Not that the cover artist of Legionnaire is doing hack work.
I'm paying for the cover. Remember?
Yeah, you're paying for the cover, so I'm not as worried about that.
But we're splitting this, right?
Right, you're paying for all of this too. That's right.
No.
Yes, of course. We're partners.
Funny.
We're partners.
I'm so tired of being broke.
Tell
I
Nicole.
just went to Trader Joe's today and spent $350 on food.
You know what? How
Which is
long is that
going to nothing compared to your bill?
I was going to say, do you want to know? That we do that. Not we don't do 350 every week, but we do close to 200 a week.
Oh wow! I would have, but you have 6 people.
Yeah, but they're little.
Oh, okay. Man, you're gonna get killed in puberty.
That's why we need people to subscribe to Galaxy's Edge, man.
But I think it was good to have this money talk with people so that they know it's not just Nick and Jason and Photoshop.
Right.
and editing our own stuff. We're literally paying, like, David Gatewood is the best. He charged me like $3,000 to do Control Alt Revolt. Over $3,000. Over
Mhm.
I think he actually gave me a rate reduction after the $3,000 because
Mhm.
he felt so bad, like, this is so much money.
Right.
But so I want people to know, like, hey, we're really spending money on this. And so don't think we're just like, hey, let's buy some more cigars, Jason. Because
Yeah, right. We're rich. No, yeah, absolutely. And part of that goes to what our long-standing slogan is, which is, if we're going to put our names on something, then we're going to have it be the highest quality, the best product and the best quality available. You know, we could get one of those cheesy renders that looks like it was a 1990s computer generated kid show. You know, you can get that on Fiverr. But that's,
wait, is that what is that like? For people use that for their covers?
Yeah, you see those people that have like those very poorly rendered covers.
Well, there's
Like
something I'm thinking of. I feel like people are really spending money on their covers these days.
Well, I think people are getting the memo because, you know, it's not saving money on covers. I think people have battered the people that try to do that so often. I still see it sometimes though, where it's just like take 2 stock photos and then just fade them over one another and say, there's a cover, you know?
There was a guy like who he was like, I don't know why my book isn't selling. I looked at his cover and I'm like, I can tell you, but I don't want to. Because I mean, like, everybody knows that I'm not short of an opinion on broad stuff, but I'm not a cruel person. You know, like, I don't just go, like, I'm not like David Gatewood. I don't just go in and just sink all the beautiful prose that you've written and tell you that you're head hopping again and you can't write and make fun of why you can't spell your own name.
Yeah,
I'm a kind person. You know what I mean? So I can't just, like, it's very hard for me to wait when, like, and this is the thing everybody does. They're like, come to me and they say, oh, would you read my book and tell me if it's good or not? And I'm like, you're asking the wrong person, because I can't actually do that. I'll always say, like, oh, you're doing so great. This is awesome.
Right. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. But you know what? As we close in, when we talk about,
are you trying to close this? I keep riffing and you're trying.
No, I'm not trying to close. I like riffing.
Do you have to go to work today?
No, I mean, kind of, but I want you to finish. I want you to finish edits so we can get that chapter out.
Okay.
But no, that's one thing. When we talk about bringing in other authors, I think one thing subscribers have to know, and we want them to know, is that it's not just open casting call and we're going to sit here throwing anything out there because like, our plan is to actually say, okay, you're the lead dog, but then you and I are going to go over it and we're going to say, this doesn't work, this does work, this fits, this doesn't fit.
Right. And then it's going to get, in a perfect world, which is the world we're aiming for, it's going to get edited by David Gatewood, which is going to cost a ton of money. And it's going to be, it's going to get a Scott Flanders cover, which is, you know, literally the best in the video game business.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, what we're putting out is going to be a reflection of the brand, and we don't want subpar stories going out because then we betray your trust, and you know, that's just not what we want.
That was another Apocalypse Weird problem.
Another lesson from Apocalypse Weird.
Yeah.
getting the what did I just read?
I know we're both thinking about the same dude too.
We got a few what did I just read emails at the end.
Oh, and you know, I told that guy, you're great. I think you're really good at doing this.
Right. Exactly.
And anyone I know who is listening to this podcast, or any of our friends, it is not you, because this guy hates my guts now. So.
Right. Yeah. One of
the
growing.
It's not you.
Yeah. One of the many. One of your many admirers.
Hey, how many people can say that they have an enemies base is almost as large as their reader base?
It's pretty impressive. I wonder if you get spite buys. Like, do you think people buy your books just so they can, like, yell at you and tell you and just write in the margins how horrible you are?
I get spite buys because they hate, like, the sort of the anti crowd of me. So they vote that, like, I'm just buying your book out of spite.
No, I have seen that.
Yeah. That they hate me. One person actually went through all my negative reviews on a certain book on Control Alt Revolt. On Control Alt Revolt, and they said it's weirdly similar. Most of these reviews seem to have been written by the same few people. They said there's a lot of
Right.
cues and styles here. So
Right.
I thought that was weird. Like that someone.
Well, yeah.
Like I
but-
know I hate certain writers, but it's nothing more than like, okay, like right now I hate The Walking Dead.
Mhm.
And I want to write a blog post about what's wrong with it, but I can't gin up the energy,
Mhm.
because I've got too many other things to do in life. And it's just a stupid TV show that was great that's gone sideways. But I'm not The Walking Dead. I'm just some nobody writer. But this person has like now dedicated their life to putting out like review after review after review telling everybody I'm Hitler. And it's
Right.
like, I can't be your hobby. I am on Twitter. I have a guy whose hobby is like, I have 3 people on Twitter whose hobby is to hate everything that I say.
Right. I think I've seen some of those. One of them's like a book formatting company, isn't it?
It was my book formatting company.
I've seen that, and I've thought to myself, what in the world kind of like it's like you're a book formatter and you're sitting there spending all your time like
I
battling
paid
with
these
this
people
author.
$600 once to format a book, and they hate my guts.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no shortage of complaining to you about it.
Yeah,
But you
and
know what? For that book formatting company, I didn't know that you would use them, but I can say I have already, when I saw those tweets, I was like, well, that's a company I'm never going to work with.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they don't realize like that a lot of writers dig me for advice because I'm so mouthy, and they see it too. But I learned that they were the biggest ripoffs.
Mhm.
But I didn't know they were the first people to ever, and I thought we had a good relationship, and I liked them,
Mhm.
but I found like they were charging me literally so much money, but I didn't know. Like
Yeah.
I went when I first started. When I wrote The Old Man in the Wasteland, I went and I studied everything J.A. Conrath had to say
Mhm.
about publishing, and you can read, like if you're interested in getting into the newbies guide, I think his blog is great, and they came through his blog. I went back and read like 3 years worth of articles
Yep, I did
at
that
that
too.
time. Yeah,
Mhm.
and just to kind of get in, so I got them from him because they do it for him, but like they were like compared to like Kevin Summers, who I think formats far better and like really makes the interior of your book like in print look beautiful. Like his formatting of Rooster in the Weird series is just so pro.
Yeah.
And then he'll even add like cool sort of just, I don't know what to call the artwork, but it's like it doesn't draw focus, but it makes you feel the energy or action or the feeling of the book. He made this beautiful rooster picture for Fight the Rooster, and like I'm like, okay, how much do you charge? He's like $90. I'm like, for just one format? He's like, no, all. And I'm like,
Yeah, Kevin's the best.
yeah, and he was closer to like we had the Australian guy who formatted for us,
Mhm.
and then we could never get a hold of him. That was another Apocalypse Weird story. That's
Right.
how Kevin came in. But yeah, these people were just ripping my head off, ripping everybody's head off because of Conrath.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense that they're just shills for Planned Parenthood.
They like ripping people apart.
I didn't
just
even
went
think
there.
of that when I said that. But it's so
I
true.
just went there. Yeah.
No, they're brutal monsters.
It's the truth. They are nightmare fuel if you really think about it.
It is, yeah.
In fact, I'm not a progressive, so I can't start it. But if I were a progressive, I got to think that there would be takers on a progressives for life movement. Like, you can't tell me that as a society, the farthest we've progressed is to say an unwanted pregnancy needs to be ripped to shreds.
Right.
That's not progressive.
There are women who are pro life in the feminist movement, and when they did that stupid march that they had a couple of months ago, they were turned away from the march.
Right.
Yeah. So there are women, who say, yeah, I'm totally feminist. I agree with all these things. I'm socially progressive. I just think, life is sacred. And you would think that would actually be the default position of most progressives who are
That's what I'm
always about the feels and everything like that. But it's like, it's weird how suddenly like Godzilla they get when you talk about a baby. And you're like, whoa, I thought the Muslims and letting everybody in and being kind and free education. Like they're so generous with everything except defenseless babies.
Yeah,
like,
right. I know it doesn't make sense to me. You know what? If there is a Progressives for Life, if there is that kind of like a charity or someone out there that's
Right.
working on that, I
Yeah.
would totally send them some money just to be
Sure.
like, keep up the good fight, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm hoping for a defund here on Planned Parenthood.
We can only hope. I mean,
We can only hope.
that there's so many good providers of all the basic health needs for women out there in every community, like CareNet, that manage to do it without making so much of their income from killing babies.
Exactly, and it just crossed a line with guys like Kermit Gosnell,
Mm-hmm.
and then the whole baby parts selling scandal. Which that's the crazy thing about California. James O'Keefe, who I know two people who know him,
Mm-hmm.
for doing those videos now, he is now being basically charged with a crime.
Right.
Yeah, and you're like, whoa, so you're making investigative journalism illegal now because you want to protect this sacred cow?
Well, that's just it. Yeah, I tweeted that. It's like reports come out that the NSA is spying on every American, and everyone just kind of shrugs.
Right.
They discover something truly horrific, and they're yelling, "Lock them up!"
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to know how a group of people can shout for Barabbas and demand that Jesus is killed, that's how. I mean, that's us over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's a madhouse. And so, like, I think that's what we're trying to kind of do as we get into the bigger story here with Galaxy's Edge is, definitely show like the big. I mean, I think the takeaway that I'm going to do is when you make a society that can stand for nothing and they do these mad things, what you open the door for is the tyrant.
Right.
Because eventually people like, they're so tired of like this. They're like, someone come in. And to a lesser extent, that was Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And he was not my guy or anything like that. But there were people that were like, okay, come in and do all the things that we need done. And it's on both sides. I think Barack Obama was a tyrant. I think Donald Trump is shaping up to be that way too.
He's the counter tyrant. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, if you don't want to have this sort of consent of the governed, and you constantly have to force everybody to do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't be surprised when suddenly that real tyrant who we're about to meet in this book shows up and takes over the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to really experience what it is like to have no choice.
Right. No, I agree. And I think that that's an important thing. And that's what I love about the story arc when people get there is what it's not going to be is a political screed. It's not going to be Tor and Scalzi saying this is what to think. It's going to challenge. I mean, the idea is that it, like all good science fiction, it makes you think, but not at the expense of the story.
No, but you have to have the motivations for why people do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I never liked they never in Star Wars explained the motivation of the Emperor, other than he seemed to really be against. What was the Emperor's motivation? Like he just wanted to be in charge?
Yeah, just he wanted to be the big dog.
But that's I don't always buy that. I think that's an easy answer that a lot of people. I think people reach sort of this moment of like being fed up with the way things are. That was something they could have explained with Anakin, and they tried to and stuff like that. What led him to the dark side,
mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it's when you feel so hamstrung and powerless that the only option for you is to take complete control.
Right.
And so like we can't just say, okay, the big bad shows up and
mm-hmm.
and he's bad and mean and he just wants to ruin everything. No. Like just like I was doing in Control Alt Revolt when I got in trouble over that, I wasn't trying to do a political message. I was trying to say, this what happens is the conclusion of being in fear for your existence. And so
mm-hmm.
what I would say was when we introduced the big bad in this, what he's saying is, I looked at the state of the galaxy and I saw how miserable it was and how
mm-hmm.
like the poor were oppressed and the rich got richer. And if you made some money, some credits, it got taken away from you. And there was so much injustice and there was so much waste, these legionnaires getting wasted on planets and no one caring,
mm-hmm.
that I decided only I could fix it all. But the only way that I could do it was to take control of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that would be I promise that will be as political as it gets.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think that's a great point. And to your point, there's that tweet that you pointed out where the person said they wanted to jeer a serviceman who was sitting in first class.
I ripped that
which, you know, that's that whole force choking through Twitter thing.
Yeah.
But that's exactly it. It's like, so you're going to be angry at the Legionnaire who's fighting, you know, who's an extreme warrior, who's fighting for, you know, a constitution and ideals that he still hopes is there.
Yeah.
When it's the Republic that you love so much, you know, that you enable to do these things, that's sending them there for their own interest. And that's just, you know.
Yeah, it's that's always been the hard part with democracy, is that, you know, it'll do things that you don't agree with, but the things that are done often provide you the latitude. That guy's quote was, I was sitting, I was on a plane, and he said some jerk gave up their first class seat to a uniformed soldier, and I'm trying not to vomit because he was politically mad about something that happened in Mosul. And I've been that soldier who's been given a seat, you know, in first class because I was in uniform. And you're just like, your day's made. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is cool. You know, and usually you're running fast because you're on TDY. Your dad was in the military. You understand.
Yep.
And you don't care about anything. You're just trying to get home to your family. And to just suddenly, I had that during, you know, after Desert Storm, that there was a sense of patriotism that people were trying to.
They were trying to make up for Vietnam.
Right, exactly. And so you got a lot of stuff like that. And there wasn't, I remember one time I was on a road march, and we walked by this elementary school, and it was a 100-mile road march, and it was through the Olympic Forest. And all these kids came out with flags and waved at us. And I remember, like, guys who were as hard as it gets, just crying over that, like how beautiful that was, and how much. So like that stuff just means stuff. And so like I was particularly inflamed when this dude said it. So yeah, I had to sit down and craft up some wit.
Well, it was well done. Yeah, but it was frustrating for sure. But yeah, so that's where we are, and I think that readers are going to be excited on how we get there. We're going to give you, what we're going to do is we're going to give you part one, and it's going to be worth the wait, because like Nick had said in his last email to special access and partner subscribers, chapter 9 is a huge double-sized chapter. It's almost 10,000 words in itself.
Gigantic.
It's run and gun. It's just full on. Just
I would be interested to see what your Ranger SF Marines think about it.
See, they've only been reading Legionnaire. I keep them in my pocket.
Oh, okay.
Keep those guys. Although I could send them. I think I will send them part 1.
Right.
Once we got, because a lot of those guys are deployed. You know, some of them are in Okinawa, and so you know how it is when you're on deployment. It's like there's a lot of time to do things like that. It's a little easier now with Skype and things, but anyway, military make good readers.
No matter where you're at in the military, there is always an excess of time, because that's just the way that it is. So it's nice to have things to read. But yeah, that was my most SF chapter that I could write. Right.
And I liked it. I thought it was great.
Good.
We're going to give that to you along with the definitive part 1, which is the full edited version, and that's going to be packaged up nicely, a full half of the book. We're going to call it part 1. So you'll get that. You might enjoy reading it again from start to finish, just so you can kind of see how the story developed. And then we are going to just keep flying, sending you more chapters of Legionnaire, but also we're going to pick up in part 2. And I think the way the story arc goes in my head, Nick, you can correct me.
Sure.
Is we're going to stay with Captain Keel in the port town of Tanespa. He's going to get to know that code slicer. He's going to get to know the princess a little bit better, and then they're going to be moving out, trying to find out what happened to Prisma's family, so they can find Prisma, so they can find this VIP. And we're now marching towards the point where our stories intersect.
Yeah, and in my part, the hobbits will try to take the ring to Mordor, but they'll meet this little kind of alien crazy bot named Gollum.
Galbot.
Yeah, I'll have to make something up as good as yours.
It'll all fit well together. I think we've got all the classic elements ready to go.
Yeah.
We just need to get down to the end.
And survive David Gatewood's constant humiliation.
Right. Yeah. If we can.
Abilities.
Yeah. Exactly.
No wonder Hugh Howey gave up writing.
He just dealt with too much Gatewood.
That was the whole thing. You know that whole story. You know how that works.
About
Gatewood actually
David.
wrote him and said, "Let me fix your book."
Yeah, exactly. Isn't the story that he actually sent him an email, and in the subject line it said how many errors he found?
You basically.
That takes some chutzpah.
So it's just kind of funny. But like, if you ever watch The Crown, David Gatewood is doppelgangers on that show.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a good deal. All right. Well.
All right. I'll talk to you later, sir.
Yep. We'll get that to you soon. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Everybody, thank you.
And we've got some cool stuff coming. So we'll see you soon.
Woo.